friends, welcome to this module on JSTL and expression language EL part 2. Fine. This is the part 2 of our modules on JSTL and expression language. Fine. In the last module, we had seen about expression language. It was mainly about expression language. Fine. Okay. So, yes, even we had explored what all things goes in a JSP. So, I will not repeat all those things. Yes, we understand what all things can go in a JSP. Fine. We have already seen about the custom tags. So, usage of tag, a tag library. How do we use a custom tag in our tag library in our JSP? So, if I have to use tags from any tag library, how do we use it? Fine. We have already seen about that. Fine. So, how do we use a tag in a tag library? So, now here if you want to start using JSTL, there are a few things you should be having. You first download all the things related to JSTL. Okay. It includes, there are two actually standard jar files. There is a standard.jar and JSTL.jar. These you will need to keep them in your lib folder. There are those TLD files. Okay. There are actually, the JSTL is mainly composed of 4 standard libraries. There are these 4 standard libraries available as part of what we call as JSTL. We have core tags, fine. Okay. It covers most of the commonly used tags. Then we have the format tags which will cover about the formatting, fine. Then we have the SQL tags which is related to database connection, fine, getting things from a database, and we have the XML tags, fine, which will be about parsing XML. Okay. So, those are the standard tag libraries, fine. What we concentrate here is, yes, mainly we will be looking at most of the things which are our custom tags and some of the tags which are from the format tags, fine, which are related to internationalization. Fine. Format tags, again they would be related to internationalization, where you got some properties file and you would like to use those properties which you have done, where you have done that localization, fine. So, that is what we will be looking at here. Okay. So, yeah, so how do we use them? Yes, we need those TLD files also, not just those 2 jar files. We have the standard.jar, we have the JSTL.jar, those should be in the lib, plus we need to keep those 4 TLD files, C.TLD, we have FMT.TLD, we have got X.TLD and we have got XML.TLD and we have got the SQL.TLD. Those are the 4 TLD files which will also be needed, fine. So, those TLD files you can keep them in some folder within your application, fine, and then maybe under WebINF you create a folder called TLD and keep all your TLD files over there, fine. Now, how do we use that in our JSP? So, if I am trying to use any of the JSTL, maybe I am only using the core tags, fine. So, core tags and the format tags, let us say we use only these 2 of them, fine. So, if we are using these, our JSP initially should be mentioning, okay, that yes, we have that Taglib directive. So, I will say @taglib. So, this is something which will be compulsory, fine. It is not JSTL is just available like a standard tag. So, you will have to say @taglib URI equal to, maybe if you have kept it in under WebINF TLD folder, you got your TLD file. Yes, you will say URI equal to, in double quotes you will say /WebINF /UR /TLD /C.TLD and prefix equal to, we normally keep the prefix as C to indicate it is a core tag. You could have kept any other prefix, but then every place you would be following that same prefix. Now, the convention is to use C always for the prefix related to core tags. So, fine, we can use, so let us keep that same standard, fine, everyone is following that same convention. So, fine, so that is one thing, and same way you will also create one for format tag. So, you will have @taglib URI equal to /WebINF /TLD /FMT.TLD, fine, and then the prefix for that could be FMT, fine. So, we will keep FMT as the standard which is the standard convention followed, fine, we will keep that only as the prefix, fine. So, first steps for within any JSP, if you want to use JSTL, fine, in your application, yes, you should have included those jar files and the TLD files and use those @ the Taglib directive, fine. So, having done that, then how do we use them? fine. So, let us look at each of the tags which is available, fine, each of the most of the commonly used tags which are available to us, fine. So, here let us start with the common most common tag. One of the tags, okay, it may not be used so much now, because in an earlier release of JSP, expression language was allowed to a limited extent, and you could not put them straight away. So, yes, they could go as attributes, fine, they could be going as values for the attributes. So, fine. So, one of the tags which was available for that purpose, if you wanted to give output of any of the objects or anything, fine, we have this tag called C:\out. So, we have C:\out, the syntax would require, it would require a value to be specified. One of the attribute was value. So, you can say C:\out value equal to, fine, and then you give and in the value the double quotes for the value, the value of the value attribute would be, and you can use an expression language there, dollar braces, and you put any object or whatever, fine, the value you want, fine. So, there you can use expression language, and so one of the compulsory attribute was value. We have a few optional attributes. You can say default equal to, and you can give some default value. So, in case this object which you are trying to show is empty, is not available, that object is not available, it can show the default value, fine. Or, and plus one more thing, the value which you are having, within the value, if there are those special characters like ampersand or anything, fine, or do you want to show ampersand in the output, or the ampersand has its own meaning in the HTML, fine. So, do we want to put the ampersand? So, that means we would like to put that escape sequence for showing an ampersand or showing those special characters. So, for that we have another setting which is a Boolean setting. So, we will say escape XML. So, you can say escape XML equal to, either you can mention it as true or you may mention it as false, and accordingly, yes. So, you can put this, fine. So, this is one syntax for C:\out. Another syntax for C:\out would be, you can say C:\out, do not put the value, use the other two attributes, and within C:\out and the /C:\out, you include whatever is the value to be included, fine. So, that value goes straight away, fine. So, this is something which is available, C:\out, that is our first of the JSTL, the core tags, fine. Another tag, fine, which if we are following proper MVC pattern, we may not be using it, but still it is important to know about that, fine. We have this tag called C:\set. The C:\set, set is for setting. You can use this to set the value of any of the beans, any Java bean property can be set. We can set the value in a map, fine, okay, fine, or set the value for any particular attribute. We can change the value of an attribute also, fine. So, C:\set, fine, we have this C:\set, and then we can specify value. What is the value to be set? We specify var equal to, fine, and we can specify the scope. So, this with C:\scape, if you say var equal to in that variable in a particular scope, if you do not specify scope, the default scope would be page scope. So, in that particular scope, object would be created if it is not there, and it would be given that value, fine. If you have that object already existing, fine, on that object you can use C:\set to set the value of a property. So, for that another attribute called property may also be included. You can say property equal to this, value equal to this, property equal to this. The value and property, fine, can also be used, fine, and we have that var also, fine. This can also be used for setting the value in a map, fine. So, that is what the C:\set is, fine, like C:\set, fine. We have another one, we have C:\remove, fine, where you will only say var equal to, fine. So, particular object can be attribute may also be removed, or you can find you can remove an attribute from a particular scope. You have an option of specifying scope also, fine. So, you can specify which scope, from which scope this variable needs to be removed. So, C:\remove, that is another tag which is available in our core tags, fine. In core tags we have got core tags related to flow control also, fine. We have a tag called C:\catch, fine, we will say C colon catch. It's a it's a tag with the body. So, you can say C colon catch and then put a C colon catch. We have var equal to, optional part is var equal. You can have a variable, fine, give a variable name, var equal to give some variable name. Okay. In double quote you give a variable name, and then we have a body, fine. The body is a full JSP, fine, some JSP segment, and we have a slash C colon catch. Now, the idea of this C colon catch is within this body of the JSP, if an exception occurs. Okay. If an exception occurs, it is not going to come out. Okay. It is not going to come out. Instead, it will continue processing after the C colon catch. So, C colon catch is like, okay, catch any exception if it occurs here, and you can continue after that. Fine. Another thing, the var which we have given is nothing but the var would be the variable, it would be an object which would be created, and it would in turn contain the exception object if it is getting thrown within this catch. So, we have C colon catch and slash C colon catch. Within this body of the catch, if any exception gets thrown, that object is available with that variable. Fine. That is a use of the var attribute in our C colon catch. Fine. So, that is one thing. Now, coming to the other kind of flow control which we have got C colon if. C colon if we can specify test, fine. You can say C colon if test, and test would be a Boolean expression, fine, test this, and then we have a value, fine, C colon test. Okay. We even have a optional attribute called var, C colon test var, fine. One is you just have this without any body, or you can have C colon test, you have the var also which is optional, and you have a body and then C colon if slash C colon if. So, if you use this kind of a tag, okay, fine, the test which is there, that test will be evaluated. Whatever we have specified test equal to, you give some expression there, that expression will be evaluated. The value of the expression would be evaluated to a Boolean, it is true or false. If it happens to be a true one, fine, it would then execute, then it will be evaluating the body of the if. If that test happens to be false, it will not evaluate and fine, it will not output the value of the body. Fine, whatever is the body that should go for output. So, that would not go for output if it evaluates to false. The other thing, when we said var equal to and scope, we can also specify scope. Whatever we give as var, that var will contain the true or false value which has been evaluated. So, it is an option. If you want to keep the value in a variable, value of the test in a variable, that is where we give the var also. Fine. So, we have got this C colon if. Okay. So, that is a conditional. Another conditional one, okay. Another one which is a conditional is more like, like we have various parts like a switch case kind of a thing. Okay. Okay. So, something on those lines, we have something called C colon choose. So, you can say C colon choose and slash C colon choose. Within C colon choose and slash C colon choose, fine, we can say C colon when. And here you give a, so with the entire C colon choose and slash C colon choose is broken into smaller parts. Each of those parts can be a C colon when, C colon when, C colon when, fine. Each one in the C colon when a test has been specified. Okay. So, when it comes to C colon choose, fine, it will evaluate the test in each of those C colon when. For whichever test, for whichever C colon when the test evaluates to true, that part would be included in the output. Okay. So, we have C colon when and we have a test equal to, and there will be a slash C colon when before it starts with the new C colon when. Okay. Along with the C colon when, at the end of all these C colon when, you can also add a C colon otherwise, fine, and slash C colon otherwise. It is an optional one. Fine, you may have, you may not be having. So, if you got C colon otherwise, what would happen is, if it evaluates to all of those tests and if it has failed in all the earlier C colon when, the test for all the earlier C colon when, then the C colon otherwise is going to be used, and that is what is going to be picked up for output. Fine. So, that is what we have as a C colon choose. It is more like a switch case kind of thing. Fine. Pick up one of those C colon choose, or else it goes to the C colon whatever is in the otherwise. fine. So, that is another conditional one, fine. Another one which we have are the, so these are the conditional ones, but then we also have something which are the loop, fine. You got a map, you got an array, or you got different kinds of things which are iterable, and you would like to evaluate each of those based on you want to loop over things, fine. So, you have a body for which you would like to loop. So, for that we got two different tags, fine. There is a tag called C colon for each, okay. There is one called C colon for each, fine, and another is C colon for tokens. In the C colon for each, we have attributes called items. Now, what you give as items is some object, an expression, okay, which means which is some object which could be of type array, it could be of type list, it could be of type set, it could be a collection, fine, or it could be a map also, fine. Any such thing could be used in or it could be an enumeration, any iteration, fine, anything which is iterable, fine, fine, for which there are multiple things that could be used in C colon in the items attribute. So, items attribute is for giving that, and then we have a var equal to. Now, the var here is the local variable, fine, which is within the C colon for each and the slash C colon for each. This variable will contain the current value from that items. So, items is one, fine, maybe you have chosen to some map to be there. In case you are choosing a map, the var would be containing the map entry, the map dot entry. So, the key value pair that would be available in the var, fine, and so you can use var, fine. Var would be fine, var is something which you can use. Another thing probably you might be using is you may not use items, okay, or even with items, even in spite of items, there are other optional attributes here. You have an attribute called first, fine, sorry, you have an attribute called begin, you have an attribute called end, and you have an attribute called step, fine. So, this begin, end and step. Begin is for giving us out of those items, fine, we have a fine those sequence of items, out of those items which from which position should I begin, fine. It may be more applicable to an array or to a list, something which is having a which is ordered, fine. So, we can give the beginning point, fine, beginning index, we can give the end index and do not go beyond this index, and we can even give the step size. By default step would be 1, fine. So, that is another option which we have. Okay. Now, along with this there is still one more optional attribute called var status. Var status is one more, it is an object which has its own properties. It has properties like begin, end, to know that yes, this is actually the beginning row, this is the end row, fine, something like that. Oh, am I at the beginning row, or to know the number you can, okay, which is the current number, fine, the index number, whether it is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, what is the position. So, to know the current position. So, you have various various properties in the var status. So, var status dot begin is a boolean, var status dot end is a boolean to know whether it is the beginning one or it is the end one, fine, and var status dot number. So, that would tell us number 1, 2, 3, 4 like that, or var status dot index. So, that will give us the index as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Fine. So, that is another thing which we can have. So, another thing this is one syntax where we use items. In the other syntax we may not be using items, you can just straight away in the, if you are not using items, in that case begin end would be compulsory, fine. You can optionally give a step, fine, and again we still have the var and the var status. So, var would contain the integer value. So, you can have some integer values here, fine. So, in when you say begin end and you are not giving items, those are integer types then, fine. So, that is another option which we have for using the for each. So, for each can be used for iterations, fine, and then we have the after the for each, the next one is the for tokens. In the for tokens, fine, we can specify items. The items here can be a string, fine. Fine. See in the earlier syntax also, in the for each also, items could be a string, in which case the variable would get the character, individual characters from the string. It is again string is something, it is made up of a sequence of characters. So, that way characters would be available even with for each, but here what we have is for tokens. In case of for tokens, we give item which should be a string, fine, and then we will say delimiters, delims. So, we will say delimiters and we specify a delimiter. So, whatever is the string, it would use this delimiters to break it into smaller parts, and then we have those attribute called var equal to. So, the variable var would be used for making available that specific token. So, tokens are broken out from that item by using the delimiters and makes it available to you within the for tokens tag with the help of the variable. Fine. So, you can use this in case you have some delimited set. Very commonly maybe you have read something which is comma separated, fine. There is something, there is some object in which you have a set of lines which are comma separated values. So, when there are comma separated values and you want to find each of those values, you can use the delimiters as comma and break it into smaller parts and iterate over each and every item in that line. Fine. So, that is one kind of a thing which we can use here. Fine. So, we have the for tokens. Fine. Now, we have some more core tags. Fine. We got some core tags for C:* import. Now, these core tags are related to using the URLs, fine, accessing other URLs, other resources. Okay. So, one is maybe you are interested in redirecting. Fine. If you are interested in redirection, fine, we know we can use those. We have that standard tag also for redirection, but then that redirection, fine, which we had available even in a servlet when we say redirection, fine, we can redirect, right. So, now here redirection would be available even within your application itself, fine. You can redirect to anything. So, you can say C:*redirect and you have to specify URL equal to and give a URL to which you can be redirected. So, this one called C:*redirect. You have C:*import or C:*import, it is for including the text, including the content from a given URL. So, you will specify URL equal to, fine, you will specify the URL, you will specify the var. Now, if you if you specify a var, that var would get the value of the content. The entire content as a string can be made available to a var. Fine. So, you can use that C:*import to actually read the content from another place and make it available in a variable, fine, and maybe or you can even include it in your content, in the current content, pick up the content of another place. Now, this is giving you full access in the sense that you can give any URL, fine. Your URL can be out of the, it need not be within your web application. It can go outside the web application, go even outside the server, fine, to any particular thing. So, that way, fine, it is much more powerful than something like a request dispatcher include, because request dispatcher include works only within your current application, fine, it is within the context, not outside the context. So, this one is global, fine. Okay. So, that is a C:*import. Okay. Then we have these tags which are for there is another one which is for when you have cookie, when we have session tracking to be done. Session tracking we understand normally done by using cookies. Cookies are very commonly used for session tracking, but instead of using cookies, fine, sometimes some servers may say no, we do not use cookies, we will be following URL rewriting. Now, if there is a URL rewriting, it involves a lot of effort here, fine, to rewrite each and every place where we have a URL. So, here wherever you have a URL, okay, which is within your application, you would like to have the the session ID being included, fine. That means, you have to do your URL rewriting. Fine. Now, if you have to do a URL rewriting, how do I generate that rewritten URL? And for that we have a C:*URL tag, fine. Just have to include that C:*URL, fine, specify the value, specify the URL which is your local URL, fine. and to that local URL it would automatically append the rewriting of that URL would be done for us by this particular tag. So, fine. So, this is something which we have as part of the core tags. So, these are the commonly used core tags. Okay. Other than the core tags, coming to the next category of tags, the next category is the format tags. Okay. In this format tags, here we are going to be looking only at the internationalization related tags. Fine. We will not cover all the tags here. Fine. So, internationalization related tags, recollect in internationalization what do we have? We have a locale class. Fine. So, we got a tag called C colon set locale, not C. Oh, this is not C, it is not a core tag, it is a format tag. So, one thing compulsory here would be you will need in your JSP, if you want to use these tags, you will need to include the taglib for FMT. Okay, FMT TLD has to be included, and for this format tag, fine, we have this tag called set locale. Fine. So, we will say FMT colon set locale. Fine, it will be FMT colon, not C colon. Now we are saying format tags always normally we prefix with FMT. So, FMT colon set locale, and then we will say value equal to. Now, value equal to here should be the value object of a locale type. You can give a string also. Fine. For example, UN underscore EN underscore US, English in US. Fine, that is an example. Or here what is also allowed is you can use, instead of underscore, you may even use a hyphen, even that is also allowed here. So, fine, that is another way. Fine. So, of specifying a locale. So, locale also can be specified here as a text. We have another attribute, an optional attribute called variant. So, you can say variant equal to and give a variant, have a variant also added to it. Fine. So, that is another thing which you can add here. Fine. So, we have FMT tag. So, it is like this. So, in this JSP, throughout this JSP, this is my setting for locale. So, you are specifying a locale here. Fine, you are able to specify a locale. Maybe you would like to use the preference of the user's preference for the locale. Now, how do I include the how do I specify the user's preference for the locale? So, for that I will say FMT colon set locale value equal to dollar braces. Oh, where do we find the user's preference of locale? Oh, that is in the request. Fine. So, request dot get locale. So, instead of that dollar braces, fine, we will have request. How do I get the request object? It is from the page context. So, page context dot request dot locale. So, that would work for giving me the current user's preference about the locale. So, that is one very good thing to set. So, you are setting whatever is the browser the client's preference for locale, that can be easily be set, but you could set it to any other value, specific value also. Fine. So, that is also possible. Okay, fine. And then we have another fine. So, this is one. So, you do this setting first, and then I am interested in using actually the I am interested in using a particular resource bundle. Fine. So, you will have FMT colon set bundle. Fine. So, set bundle is the one which would then set, fine, where we will say value equal to, and we will specify the name of a resource bundle. Fine. So, we have the base name basically, sorry, I think it is base name equal to, it is not value equal to, here we will say base name equal to. So, FMT colon set bundle base name equal to the name of a resource bundle. Fine. The base name for the resource bundle. Fine. And that can be specified. So, that way you specify your which resource bundle should be used, because already we have a setting for locale. So, for that locale, it will for that current, whatever is your current setting for the locale, it will be fetching the resource bundle. And then we have the other one called FMT colon message. Fine. So, when we say FMT colon message, we can say property equal to, and we will give the name of a property or name of one of those resource names, fine, which we have specified in the properties, fine, the key part, and for using that we should be able to fetch any of the properties into our. So, property for the current which is best according to the current locale, that can be fetched for us by the by using this kind of a tag. Now, you may have some place you may have a requirement, no, I want for a particular part of the body, fine, when I say C colon set set locale, it is the locale setting for the entire thing, but for a or even when I say C colon set bundle, I am setting the resource bundle for the entire JSP page from that point onwards, but then I might be interested no, not for the entire page, but for a small segment I want to use a particular different resource bundle, fine. So, if you want to have a maybe in a small part we would like to use a different resource bundle, fine. So, in order to use that different resource bundle, we even have a FMT colon bundle, fine. So, FMT colon bundle would be used with a body. So, we will say FMT colon bundle and slash FMT colon bundle. Within this FMT colon bundle and slash FMT colon bundle, we may be using that FMT colon message, fine, where we will where we are able to specify key equal to, fine. So, FMT colon message, and when we say key equal, we are actually giving a key to the to a property, and we are getting the corresponding property here. Fine. Another thing, we might sometimes have that formatted message, fine, message format class of java.text package. If that is being used, we understand that can have parameters, fine. So, if you want to pass parameters to that, our FMT colon message can include a inner tag called param, fine, where we will say FMT colon param name equal to and value equal to, fine. That is something which can be used here, fine. So, that is what we have in the format tags, fine, the format tags related to internationalization, fine. So, you can use FMT colon set locale, fine, we have FMT colon set bundle, and for a smaller segment we can say FMT colon bundle and slash FMT colon bundle, within which you may be fine. And as far as FMT colon message is concerned, yes, it can be used anywhere, fine. And when we say FMT colon message, it is going to use for the current resource bundle which got selected because of the FMT colon set bundle, or it may be FMT colon bundle, either of them, fine. Which are, if it is FMT it is inside FMT colon bundle, that would take precedence, fine. Otherwise, whatever is the setting of FMT colon set bundle, that would be used, fine. And that way we can include things which are from a resource bundle. So, if we have a web application, we are writing a web application, we have gone for internationalization, we have done the localization job, fine, we got resource bundles for it, we should be able to use them in our JSP page quite easily, fine. So, that is what we have in this module. Thank you, 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 thank you. Hello friends, welcome to this module on developing custom tags. Fine. In the last module, we had looked at the standard tags which are available for use in a JSP. Fine. So, those standard tags we had used with something like JSP colon, and we had JSP colon use bean, there were bean tags, there were tags for the we had tags for including an applet. Fine. So, we had various there are these ready made standard tags which are available for use in any JSP. So, to include any of those standard tags, we simply say JSP colon, and there is some tag name, and then we have some attributes and some of fine, and then we have fine, and we can, so that way we could be including, we could be using any kind of those standard tags. Fine. We have various categories of those standard tags. Now, other than these standard tags, okay, there is also a possibility of a Java programmer creating certain more tags of his own and using them within a JSP page. So, in a JSP page, it is not only that you will be able to use those standard tags only, whatever is provided. You can include other tags, like we have programmers whose only job is to just develop, they may be interested in creating various good tags and which are more general purpose tags, and creating them in the form of a library and distributing it for use by others. Fine. So, we got something called tag library. there is a library of tags, someone could create a full library of tags, and then this library fine could be included in any JSP. So, a JSP fine in a JSP what can be used? Fine, we had seen so many times we use in JSP we use everything like whatever is HTML, we can use expressions, scriptlets, fine. We have seen those scripting elements. We have also seen we can use directives, we can have we have directives. Yeah, one of those directives we have seen the page directive earlier. We have one of the directives was the taglib directive. We could say @taglib, and recollect in @taglib what we can do. Or we can say @taglib. We are supposed to, there are two attributes there. One attribute is URI equal to, and you give some URI. What is that URI for? That URI is for a TLD file. What is TLD? TLD is tag library descriptor, fine. And then the other attribute which says prefix equal to, and we give some kind of a prefix. Of course, here there is some restriction on the prefix. The prefix can't be saying JSP, because when we use standard tags, that prefix is JSP. So, JSP, there are certain things which are reserved and cannot be used as prefix in our taglib directive. When we say taglib, the prefix value cannot be JSP, JSPX, it can't be Java or JavaX, fine. You can have any other things, fine. So, you have prefix. The idea here is whenever when I am saying @taglib, I am saying in this particular JSP, I would like to be using all those tags which are available or which are declared in this particular TLD file. We have a TLD file, a tag library descriptor. A TLD file is an XML file. In this XML file, we got we got the taglib/taglib, and within that we have got tags, fine. We declare, I got so and so tag, we give a name to the tag and associate this name with a particular class. So, we have a class corresponding to each tag which has been developed. So, a tag developer, fine, we have a tag developer. So, the tag developer defines certain classes and also creates a TLD file which associates this, gives a name to this to the tag which is defined using a Java class. So, we have a Java class which is used for defining a tag, fine. So, this module mainly will concentrate on looking at how do we define this kind of a tag classes, what are these kind of, how do we define these tag classes, and a little bit about how to create a TLD file, fine. So, anyway, we will have one demonstration also later which will demonstrate how to create a tag a TLD file and how to create custom tag which can then be used in a JSP file. So, that we will have a later module will be used for giving a demonstration on that, fine. So, in this so let us continue with looking at so one thing was we had used the taglib directive. So, we use taglib directive in a JSP and say this is the TLD file. That TLD file says there is a name there, fine. It associates a name with our tags, for our tags. So, whenever we want to use any tag which is available in that TLD, we will be using that prefix colon and the name which appears in the TLD, fine. Now, coming to what are tags? What does a tag have? A tag has, so a standard, if you look at tag, these are all valid XML tags, fine. They have to follow the hierarchical structure of XML. So, so they always have, like we have a parent tag, there is a child tag. So, it is always in XML it is a hierarchical, right. So, any tag may have a parent tag, fine, and tags also have attributes, fine. So, attribute will have a name. So, whenever we use a tag, we will say tag prefix colon tag name, then we might be using attribute, if whatever attribute is allowed for this tag equal to, and then we have to give a value for the attribute which may be in single quote or may be in double quote. So, we have such attributes, and then we may have a body for the tag, and after the body of the tag you may have the end of a tag, and of course, you may have tags which do not allow a body, fine. So, let us see, we are interested in someone defining such kind of, so there is a tag developer. So, we are looking at this from the point of view of a tag developer. What does a tag developer have to do here? Okay. So, from the tag developer's point of view, yes, if someone wants to develop tags, he will have to define certain classes. Okay. We have now in our API, there is one more API which is related to JSP, like we have a servlet related API, we have a JSP API. Fine. The JSP API has a package called javax.servlet.jsp.tagext, tag extension. Think of it as tag extension, and this tag extension has got certain interfaces. There are three good interfaces for creating three different kinds of tags. We have one kind of a tag, fine, which is a simple tag. We normally use it for a tag which does not have any kind of a body. Fine. If there is a tag, simple tag, it may have attributes, but maybe it may not have any body. Fine. So, we might be using a very simple kind of a tag. Okay. So, and then we have another kind of a tag which we go further. It is known as a iteration tag. So, we have a iteration tag which extends from the tag. Okay. So, it has a few more things. Fine. This iteration tag has a ability where you may use a iteration tag where normally we have some kind of a body. Now, you may like to repeat the body in the output again and again till certain condition is met, which may be decided by the tag only. Okay. So, we have tag called iteration tag, and then we have a body tag where it's again an extension of the iteration tag. So, it has the ability of a looping over the body content, but the idea here is in the body tag, the idea here is the content which is the body part, the body content which is part of within the start and end of a tag, that body content is made available to the tag, and the tag, it is the tag which decides how to use it. There is a buffer created through which the body content would be made available. It is pushed into a buffer which is accessible directly to the tag. Fine. The iteration tag does not process a body. The iteration tag only says I want the body to be processed by the JSP engine. It is not that the tag is getting hold of the content. So, that is a difference there. Fine. So, we have these three kinds of tags. Let's look at each of those tags here. Each of these tags are, when you include a tag when you make a tag entry within any JSP, there is a life cycle for this tag object within the JSP page itself. So, we have a life cycle of a JSP page of a tag which goes as part of the tag are part of a JSP page. So, let us start by looking at a simple life cycle for a simple simple tag. So, if you define a class by extending from the tag interface, you have to by implementing the tag interface, you have to implement these kind of tags depending on what kind of tag you want. So, normally if you have a empty tag, you may extend from, you may be implementing the tag interface. So, let us look at what methods and how they get invoked. Okay. So, the first method in this case, as soon as that page is JSP page is going to be loaded, fine, it would be invoking a method on the tag which is embedded here. It would invoke the method called set page context. Recollect page context, it is the object which contains all the other implicit objects. The idea here is all implicit objects to be made available to the tag object. Fine. So, within the tag, the tag developer now gets hold of the current objects, the current implicit objects. All implicit objects will be available. For example, from this tag, from this custom tag, from the tag object, the tag developer wants to put some output. He has the out object available to him. If he wants to read some parameter from the request, here is the request object available from the page context. So, the idea is to push the page context object into the tag object, the tag component. It is a tag component which the tag developer is creating. So, that one gets the first life cycle method, you can say, is set page context, where page context is given. The next thing, the tag is given, the tag has a method called set parent, where the parent tag, remember it is a hierarchical, right. So, tags have a hierarchy. So, if there is a hierarchy, if there is a parent tag to this, set parent would be invoked and the parent tag object would be made available to this tag. Okay. Now, one more thing here, there is an additional method in the interface called get parent. So, the idea here is, so the implementation of set parent should actually store this in some instance variable. You must have a, so when you write your implementation, you must keep a instance variable to store your parent tag object, and your get parent method must be implemented that way. So, life cycle point of view, yes, we have the set page context followed by set parent. Now, the next thing what is happening is, it is looking at your tag. Okay. In this tag you got your attributes, fine, you got some attributes there. So, you got attribute name 1 equals some attribute value, your second attribute name equal to the attribute values, fine. The way the web page developer has used this, fine, he would have used some attributes for the tag when he is using a particular tag. So, when he uses these attributes, the values for these attributes have to be given to this component, and for that the tag developer has to have the setter methods corresponding to attributes. For example, maybe you have a directive to put the current date and time. So, you might have a you develop a tag to put the current date and time. Maybe you call the tag as now. So, maybe you create a class called now tag, which implements the tag interface. You would have those three methods, but now maybe you would like to have the formatting, the date time formatting to be specified, right, as an attribute. You may have a default. So, maybe you do not keep it as a compulsory attribute, but you have a attribute called format. So, if you are allowing an attribute called format, your class, the tag class, must have a method called set format. The parameter to this, so we have the parameter to this in this case can be should be a string. What is allowed here is, there is an implicit conversion from string to the primitive types available to us, fine. And therefore, when you define this setter method, the idea is to have setter methods for all the attributes. So, if you are having any tag, fine, and you know this, when you are designing your tag, you have already decided on attribute names. So, whatever attribute names you have, for each attribute you must have a setter method. So, set and attribute name, fine, and the parameter to this can be any of the primitive type, or it can be a string, fine. It depends on how you have designed your tag. So, what is the need of that particular attribute, fine. So, you got, so from the life cycle point of view, first invocation of set page context, next was set parent, okay. Next is the invocation of the setter methods for the attributes. Once the setter methods for the attributes is over, fine. So, that means the page the tag component has been told these are the attributes which the page design, which the web page designer has set for you. Okay. Next would be the indication, next it is saying, okay, now you tell me, okay, it is then next the engine invokes the method called do start tag. It does not have any parameters, do start tag without parameters, but it has a return type called int. The return value here is going to decide whether the body content is going to be processed or not. It has to be evaluated or not by the page engine, fine. So, JSP engine, should it be evaluating the body content or not, that will be decided depending on the return value of the do start tag. Okay. So, the engine is saying, okay, now you do the start tag, do the things which you would do. I have already set the attributes, now you do the next thing. Now, I am asking you to do this, do some activity in the do start tag. So, you have the do start tag, the return value here can be, so we have static constants in our tag interface. We have a constant called skip body or eval body include. So, you may be returning one of those two values here in the do start tag. Okay. So, it will, if it so normally if it is a empty tag, fine, which does not have a body, then it should be returning skip body. If it has a body and the tag decides that yes, the body needs to be evaluated, fine, it should say eval body include, fine. Once this is done, once the do start tag has returned and if it is eval skip body, it will straight away go and jump to invoking the next method, which is do end tag. If it had returned eval body include, it will include the body content, fine. If it will evaluate the body content, and then it will be invoking the do end tag. Again, now this do end tag, the tag is again given another control whether to decide whether the rest of the page needs to be skipped or I need to proceed further. So, you can return any of the two values called skip page. So, we have a constant called skip page, which can be returned here, or you might be returning eval page. So, you have skip page, eval page, those are the two constants available here, fine. So, this is what is happening, and then so normally you may be saying eval page, fine, and then it will proceed further, and within the page it will be processing rest of the things. Once the page is over, there is another life cycle method which is at the end. The life cycle method is release. Release returns void. So, that way our tag interface has all these methods, fine. So, tag interface has methods set page context, set parent, then we have attribute methods are not in the interface, they would be decided by the tag developer, and then we have the get parent method, it is included in the interface, and we have the do start tag, the do end tag, fine, indicating the start and the end of the tag, okay, fine, and then we have the release method. So, that is what we have in the tag interface, fine. Now, you might have you might be interested in using the next type of tag, which is the iteration, fine. In the iteration tag, the life cycle is very similar, there is a little change here. In case of a iteration tag, fine, the evaluation is almost the same, the life cycle is same. We have the set page context, we have the set parent getting invoked, and then we even have the invocation of the setter methods for the attributes. So, all that happens, but then we have one additional method. Once we say now, when we say eval body include, suppose it says eval body include, yes, it will evaluate the body content, but after the body content has been evaluated, fine, it invokes another life cycle, the additional method which we have in the iteration tag. That method is do after body. So, we have this method called do after body, which does not have any parameter. So, in the life cycle, it is after the do start tag. After the do start tag, if the do start tag returns skip body, then this method will not be called, it will straight away go for do end tag, fine. But if it is returning eval body include, fine, after the evaluation of the body is over, it will invoke the method do after body. So, this is the method being called. Now, this method, in order to repeat the evaluation of the body content, it can return a value called eval body again. So, there is another constant called eval body again, it is a constant in the iteration tag. So, the integer value returned by do after body, it can be eval body again, or it can be skip body. If it says so, if it says eval body again, it keeps on repeating the evaluation of the body till this method, it evaluates the body, invokes a method called do after body, again evaluates the body. If it is returning if it is returning the eval body again, it just keeps on repeating the evaluation of body, and this will be in a loop, fine, unless it says skip body. Once it says skip body, it will be then again going to the regular other life cycle method, which is the do end tag, fine, and then of course, at the end it has to end of the page, it has to call the release method, fine. So, this iteration tag is giving us the option of iterating evaluation of the body being repeatedly happening there, fine, and then we have the other type of tag called the body tag, fine. The third type of tag is the body tag. In the body tag, fine, the body tag has again, now in the body tag, the difference from the iteration tag, body tag extends from the iteration tag. Here also evaluation of body is done, but no, the evaluation of body is not in the manner, in the same way, the way it is done for the iteration tag. In the iteration tag, the body content goes, if the body is normally processed by the JSP engine, the JSP engine is just normal thing is to put it in the output. So, the body content goes in the output, but in this case, in case of a body tag, we have an option whereby we can prevent the content being evaluated directly by the JSP engine. Instead of being evaluated by the JSP engine, we can ask the JSP engine to put it in a buffer and make it available to this. So, the kind of methods which we have here, if you look at the life cycle for a body tag, again on the line similar to the earlier one, but yes, let me just go where the differences are. So, first step was set page context, set parent, setter methods for the attributes, that would always happen, fine. And then we have the do start tag. Do start tag, now what does a do start tag return? Oh, it can return skip body, it can return eval body include. Other than this eval body include, if it says eval body include, it is just like the iteration tag. If instead of saying eval body include, if the do start tag returns eval body buffered, we have this constant eval body buffered which is there in the body tag. So, if it is returning eval body buffered, in that case what is being done here is a body content object is created. It is a buffer, a body content, there is a class called body content. This is nothing but this is a class which extends from the JSP writer. JSP writer is nothing but a buffer. Okay. So, this is a buffer, but the idea here is this buffer content is accessible. We have a method to get it as a string. So, we have this body content object being created by the engine, and then it is invoking. So, after the do start tag returns a eval body buffered, it would invoke the method called set body content, where the object empty buffer object is given to the is made available to our tag object. And after the invocation of set body content, where the buffer object has been given, it then asks the it is again asking the tag, if you want you can do some initialization on this buffer. So, maybe you put some initial part or anything. So, you can do something. So, it is calling a method called do init body. So, there is a method called do init body, fine. So, those two additional methods have come in here. So, for a body tag we have two additional methods. There is one additional method called set body content, and the other method is do init body, fine. So, this could be used for initialization purpose, fine, and then the evaluation of the body content would take place, and then similar to the iteration tag, fine, similar to the iteration tag, it would be invoking the method for do after body. But when now what is this evaluation of the iteration tag? What is this evaluation which is being done by for us? The evaluation which is done would result in, no, it is not going to evaluate this JSP and put it in the output, because it is saying buffered, it is not going in the output, it is instead put into the buffer which was given to us, fine, which is given to the tag in the set body content methods. So, the body content object given to us in the set body content method is then updated, fine. The evaluation of eval body buffered results is now for a body content, it would result in this body being put into the appended into the buffer, it just gets appended into the buffer, fine. So, this buffer is then and then there is an invocation of do after body. So, when the do after body is there, you have the body content object available, which is where the thing is appended, and you can then decide what you would like to do with the content. The content is now with the tag. The content was never with the tag in the iteration tag. In case of a body tag, the content is available directly to the tag, and then the tag can decide, this tag can then decide how to use it, fine. And then it also, like a iteration tag here also, it needs to decide whether it would like to have this appended another time again. So, if it wants to repeatedly have it appended, that could also be done. It can just return eval body again. The do after body can just keep on repeating eval body again. So, if it says eval body again, there is no output going to the output. The body does not go to the output, the body gets appended to the body content object, and then we have this happening, and unless it says skip body. Only when it says skip body, do after body will say skip body. In that case, it will go to the do end tag. So, in the do end tag, maybe you have the buffer ready with all the things, so with so many iterations being done, and then you may decide in the do end tag, you can decide how to you would like to use the entire buffer which has been created full, how you would like to do it. There are easier ways to push it just into the output whatever has been accumulated, or you can work over the entire buffer which is in the body content, get it as a string, do whatever you like, manipulate it, and then maybe give it in the output on your own. Fine. So, you get control over the content in case of a body tag. Fine. So, that is what we have in the body tag. Fine. And then of course, the similar life cycle at the end, it would again also have a release method. Fine. So, that way we have got these three different kinds of tags. Fine. And then we have the TLD file which has to be written. Fine. What is to be given in the URI is nothing but the TLD file. The TLD file associates a name with the tag. The TLD file has all the its XML file associates name with the tag. Fine. It would even mention about what whether this particular tag has what kind of body content it has, whether it is a empty body content or it has got some body content which is used as a JSP, or whether the body content, in case of a body tag you will say, oh, body content is tag dependent. Fine. In case of a iteration tag you will say body tag is JSP. Fine. Body content, the kind of body content is JSP. And this is something which you mentioned in the TLD file. The TLD file thing, how it is to be created, fine, that will be covering in our next module, which will be about a demonstration on how to use how to write these three kinds of tags and how to create a TLD file and use them. Fine. And so that way we have seen how to any custom tag can now be created. Fine. And these tags can then be used by a web page developer. Fine. So, that way we got the interfacing between a web page designer and a Java programmer. Java programmers are tag developers. As far as where to manage these, yes, you have your tag classes, and these tag classes can be managed. You will have to put them maybe in your classes, make them available in the classes, or maybe you create a jar file and keep it in the lib folder. The TLD file is advised to be kept somewhere within the web INF. So, normally what we do is we create a folder called TLD and put our TLD file over there. So, when we use the @taglib, fine, we will say @taglib /web INF /TLD / and wherever we have kept our TLD file. Fine. So, as a tag library developer, yes, you are free to create all the three kinds of any of those three kinds of tags and put them. Fine. So, that is what we have in this module, and in the next module, yeah, we will be having the demonstration thing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.